Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. So I adore fandom decks, at least some of them. There's some fandom decks that I have that I absolutely adore, and I may do a video talking about those as well, separate from this one, but why I mention it is because the reason why I love fandom decks is because it gives an extra layer of meaning to the tarot deck, because you have that show or book that it's based off of that just opens up that world more for you. And that's what tarot is. Tarot is a storytelling tool. You're using it to tell your story or work through things, and it's a mirror. Tarot is a mirror, and so it's just fun laying out spreads and tell a story with those cards though, and still use it to work through things that are going on in your life. And so fandom decks to me just kind of they just add an extra layer of that, extra layer of depth. And I actually have, I'll go ahead and share this one, because what we're doing today, this whole idea came to me last night, and I didn't realize I actually had so many decks that I have already related to a book series or a movie series or just a movie or a book or what have you. But I do. And so I was like, why not share my connections that I've made with some of my tarot decks? And this first deck is actually my very first tarot deck. I've talked about it before, but I'll go ahead and share it because this deck is actually based off of a book series, and it was created by the author. And that is the Raven Boy series by Maggie Stiefvater. This is a 4-book series, and it's a really fun one. This series was a buddy read for me with a friend of mine, and I actually found the whole set at Goodwill recently because the books were hers, and so they were sent back to her. But I found these at a thrift store, and I was like, that's amazing. So I'm gonna reread these along with working with the deck at some point. But again, I love the fact that this deck is related to that book. And again, it adds a layer of depth to your readings because you look at the cards, and yes, this deck is also heavily modified, by the way. If you happen to get this deck, it has big orange borders on it with the titles. I've completely trimmed mine and everything, but this deck, I mean, it's beautiful. And I also love the fact that the author of the series also created this deck. She made the artwork and everything for it. But I love it. See, I know right here that this is Blue, which is the main character, Blue Sargent, I believe is her name. Is that her name? Is that her last name? Well, Blue is her first name, but I know that that's her in this card. So everything about that character kind of just comes to mind. And with the archetypes of the major arcana, if you have the main characters or things that are from that story, again, there's just so much to explore with that. So I love fandom decks. And of course, like I said, this is an actual fandom deck because this one was created for that book series. But the next few decks I'm going to share with you guys, I'm excited about, because they are the ones that I myself have associated with a certain book I love, or a book series, or different things like that. And it's so fun to do that. I didn't realize I had so many. Like I said, I didn't realize when the idea came to me, I didn't realize I had so many that I do associate with certain ones. So that was really interesting to come to that conclusion too. But let's see, where do I want to start? I'm only going to share 3 others. Is it 3 others? 4. I'm only going to share 4 other decks with you guys in this video. This may turn out to be a series because other decks may inspire me or remind me of a certain book or series, and I may do another video on it. But today I'll start with this one. Okay, so this is just the Tarot of Vampyres by Charles Harrington and illustrated by Craig Mahar. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but this is a Llewellyn deck. And I love vampires, as you know, because I've mentioned Tarot of Vampyres by Ian Daniels several times. It's my favorite deck. It's also in this video, but we'll get to that. But I love vampires in general. And this deck, when I was flipping through it, And I've also edged mine in silver, but this is the backing. This deck, of course, has like all just the regular vampire like lore and myth and all of that in it. And the artwork's really stunning. I really love this deck. But there are some images in here that when I started working with it, I was like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of this series, and I absolutely love this series. And the more I kept working with it, I was like, I totally see this. Now, the book series that it reminds me of is actually a spin-off series to another series. And that's all written by Sarah Cannon, who is an indie author. And I don't have her books to share with you in person because I've mainly purchased them through Apple and I've read them that way. But her original series, Shadow Demon Saga, has a spin-off called Sacrifice Me. The spin-off series is about a vampire who owns this club, and the club is held in like this magical space where there's doorways around the world to it. So anybody's like, somebody in Paris could go to like the hidden doorway, and then like everybody meets in this one club, but it's just like, it's hard to describe. And I don't really want to really spoil it for anybody who might want to read it, but anyways, there's doorways around the world and all these different people can come together and meet in this one place, and it's like a safe ground. It's a place where all these different creatures and, you know, there's werewolves and witches and fairies and all these beings can come together in this one place and feel safe and not, you know, it's just a safe place, a safe, you know, a hideaway. And this deck reminds me of like all these places around the world. Like, look here. They look like they're in China or Asia, places like that. There's like one where it looks like they're in Paris, I think. And like, I don't know, it's just all these different beings and they can all come together in this one club. And let me try to find, okay, like this one right here. It's the club. There's a scene in it where the main character has to get into this thing and she dances and they drink these elixirs that make them, like, it's just a whole thing. It's a whole thing. Again, I don't want to spoil anything else, but this reminds me of it. It reminds me of the club. There's another one here. Actually, there's quite a few in here that do remind me of it. Let me, again, reminds me of just all the places around the world. And if you find the right doorway, you will end up at the club. Oh, right here. This right here, this guy right here reminds me of the main character, which is the vampire who owns the club. And this reminds me of the girl. Oh, this one here reminds me of the bartender, one of the bartenders and the owner's best friend. It just reminds me of them mixing these special elixirs for certain abilities and things, and so that reminds me of that. Here's the other one. Again, the total club vibes. Excuse me. Total club vibes in that one. So this deck totally reminds me of the Sacrifice Me series by Sarah Cannon. And I will, as long as I can remember, try to leave all the links down below for things I have mentioned or talked about in case you want to check them out for yourself. But there is the Tarot of the Vampires. Next, I'll do this one. Okay, I'm super excited about this one because the second movie's coming out, or they, you know, announced it a while ago, but Alice Hoffman's Practical Magic. And the funny thing is, like, I loved this movie for years, but I never, for like the longest time, I didn't realize it was a book. Didn't realize it was originally a book and then turned into a movie. And then I also didn't realize that it was a series. I do have magic lessons, but I think there's like, what, two more or one more in the series, and I don't have that one. I still have to get it, but I still, oh yeah, The Rules of Magic. But I love this book. I love the movie like 1,000 times. The movie, yes. I even rewatched it recently and I absolutely love it. And I'm so excited that they're coming out with another one. But the deck, that totally reminds me of it. Like as soon as I got this deck and flipped through it, it reminded me of Practical Magic. And that's the Antique Anatomy Tarot by Claire Goodchild. This deck, it just has, to me, it totally has the vibe of the ants and like that, you know, the older ants, and then you have that big gorgeous house and like their big grimoire of all their spells and rituals. And this deck reminds me of that because it does have that antique, I mean, it's Antique Anatomy Tarot, but it's got like the old book page, like it just has that old look to it. And then you have like the potions and like your tools and things you might need. And so this deck just totally gives me that vibe. It just reminds me of like being in that house. Again, potions, elixirs, like the death, like all, like them bringing back the dead and all of that. Like it just totally gives me that vibe. So that is why this deck, again, as soon as I opened it and was flipping through it, that was the, whoa. A lot of my cards like want to just fly out of my hand there. But as I was saying, this deck, as soon as I started flipping through it, that was just the very first thing that came into my mind was their like grimoire of all of their magical spells and rituals and potions. And so yeah. There's the Antique Anatomy Tarot, which reminds me of Practical Magic. Okay, next one. My all-time favorite. Yes, Tarot of Vampyres by Ian Daniels. I am still sad to say that this deck is out of print. I have trimmed mine and edged mine. But this deck, which I talked about it in my last video as well, when I was working through Unlocking the Tarot, when you get to the court cards represent people and their personalities. And so Lisa Pepez in that book wants you to use like characters from movies and stories and stuff to associate with the court cards. And when I did that, the very first series that came to mind for me was my favorite book series, and it's The House of Night by PC and Kristen Cast. This series I read several years ago, and when I read through the whole thing. There's quite a few books in that series. It's a long series, but it's so fun. It's about a vampire boarding school and all sorts of mayhem happens. There's magic, there's, I mean, elemental magic too. There's all sorts of fun things that happen. It's an amazing adventure. And this deck reminds me of that series so well. I mean, this series, it has, or this deck, I mean, like, I don't know, like the characters and the people in it, I can, especially the court cards, which is why I picked it, but I can associate the characters so well with the imagery in this deck for me. And yeah, so this deck for me, I associate with that series. Again, all about vampires, which of course is fitting because you have all this amazing vampire energy in this deck. You have the magic, you have the elements beautifully represented, you have the danger and the creatures. And so this deck, oh, you know what? It's funny. There's so many vampire stories and things out there that I just love. And even though, so yeah, my court cards are based off of characters in this series because this series was like my first, I guess, really big series that I really liked, you know, a series that had so many books in it. So I associate the characters from that, and I just love it because there's also humor throughout it, and it's a great story, great world. But another series that I love for this deck is the Crave series by Tracy Wolff. The characters, like, I love that whole world as well. And there's like some characters I reminded me because of The Magician. There's a character that in it that reminds me of this card right here. And so there's just certain cards that I do associate with other like vampire series and stuff as well. But the House of Night series is my main series for this deck. Okay, I kind of saved the best for last because this is the deck, or the book, excuse me, this is the book that like brought this whole idea together for me, because I was reading it last night. I still haven't finished it and I love it so much. And I don't have a hard copy with me or else I would show you, but it is the Phantasma story by Kaylee Smith. And I did print out like what it's about so I could tell you guys without giving any spoilers. And then I'll go into the deck. But I'll just read this to you guys real quickly. It says, "Welcome to Phantasma. There are only 2 rules to the game. Stay alive and don't fall in love. When Ophelia's sister disappears, there's only one way to save her. Ophelia must enter Phantasma, a deadly contest inside a haunted mansion, and claim its prize, a single wish. Phantasma is a maze of twisting corridors and lavish ballrooms of demons and temptations. Ophelia will face 9 challenges, each more dangerous than the last. There can only be one winner, and the other contestants will stop at nothing to eliminate their rivals. Every day the house creates new monsters, but just as Ophelia's fears threaten to overwhelm her, a mysterious stranger offers her a bargain. Charming, arrogant, and infuriatingly attractive, Blackwell claims he can guide her through the lethal trials ahead. All he asks in return is 10 years of her life. Ophelia knows she shouldn't trust him. Blackwell doesn't seem dangerous, but appearances can be deceptive. Worse still, she feels a dark and irresistible attraction drawing them closer and closer. Her life is on the line, but in Phantasma, the only thing deadlier than losing the game is losing your heart." Okay. This story. I'm almost done with it actually. I probably have like maybe a third left of the book, and I just started it yesterday, I believe. Yeah, yesterday. And this story is so good. So well written and everything. And last night when I was reading, a deck instantly came to mind. And it's the Horror Tarot. The Horror Tarot, which is actually really fitting for this. I mean, it's fitting all the way around, but when you see the artwork, if you've read this book, I think you'll understand, or if you do get to read the book at some point. Now, I'm currently reading it on Kindle Unlimited, so it is available on there if you have Kindle Unlimited. But oh my gosh. So the 9 challenges you face in this house are based on the 9 levels of hell. Yeah, it's like yeah. And so each challenge is worse than the last until you get up to the top. And if you're the winner, then you get a wish or a grant from the devil. And her, like everything, the aesthetic and everything totally reminds me of this deck when I thought about it. Because I mean, even the main character wears dresses like this. She wears dresses like this. This I could totally see being in her room. There's of course like death all around. And there's ghouls and phantoms. Like, you not only have to worry about the contestants, but there are things that pop out, and it's a game. Like, it tests your sanity. And this right here reminds me of the bargain. And there's so much in this deck that, I mean, yes, okay, granted, it's a bit pippish. This deck, a lot of people do kind of gripe about ones like this. This is from Insight Editions. And sometimes it is very pippish. It's kind of just dialed in. You just get, you know, the main, or excuse me, the major arcana are like really great because you have characters on every single card, but then you get to the minors and it's all just like, well, here's, well, you know, there you go. Like, you don't really get much of a scene, but like when I associate it with a story, like it adds so much more to it. Like, there are a lot of cobwebs in the story too, like in this mansion. And I feel like that's the story here. Like, here's a devil. And I could just see this be one of the goals. And like, here's the competition. There's vampires. It's like everything I love. So yes, I love this deck. I loved it even before I made the association to this book. But now that I see the characters in this deck, like right here is a character in it. Top hat and all. And it's just like, I just love that. I love being able to associate a deck with a book or a book and see all the things that could be happening in that world. Oh, this right here, I just got to a scene that reminds me of this. To a T. And again, I'm not spoiling anything. I'm not going to spoil anything. But I absolutely love this deck even more now because of this book. So there it is. There's the one that like totally started this whole thing. I can't even, like, I can just see, I could see it all happening. And that, well, that one too. I can see it all happening within that world. I mean, there's gruesome stuff in it. And I love it. Like these characters, the ghosts, and again, just a cups, but it reminds me of the absinthe. Kiss of death. I like that one too. Again, a reminder. Yeah, I could, the Emperor, I can totally see being like the devil in charge or the creator of this whole thing. Again, I haven't gotten to the ending yet, but the Emperor is all about control and authority and the one who's like in charge of it all. So yeah. Okay, anyways, there it is, you guys. There's my first few decks that I associate with books. It is mostly books, yeah. Well, books and, I mean, movie too for this one. But yeah, this is so fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know if there's any, like, do you have any decks that you automatically associate with a movie or a book that you just absolutely love? I just think it just adds, again, more depth to your readings and cards and insights. It's fun. So let me know down below if you do have decks that remind you of a certain favorite thing of yours, and I will catch you guys all in the next video. Bye.